Thanks, Leo. So hi, everyone. Welcome to our Argo CD and Argo Rollouts Contributors meeting. First of all, I want to thank Leo and Christian for being on triage this week. And I would like to ask for 2 volunteers for triage for next week.
Can you share your screen with the meeting doc?
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I'll take the secondary. It's been like about a month, so I can do another one of those.
Okay. Hi, Andre. Thank you. Are there any volunteers for the primary? Okay. I will be primary then for next week. Okay. So first of all, Leo and Christian, I see that you have a couple of issues for discussion for triage today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one is there's a ongoing discussion. It seems to be a regression that affects users with large repos, repos with more than 20 gigabytes, monorepos of sorts. And the thing is, we introduced a new key as part of our cache, which is the project key, which apparently it makes Argo CD repo server to clone the repo more often than it should. So the user here is complaining saying that this is a regression. So they have a very, very large Git repo, and because we introduced that project as part of the cache key, now they cannot leverage their pre-cloned repo storage. So if you scroll down, there's a big thread when Blake, myself, Michael, not here. If you keep going, keep going. Yeah, here. Yeah, this is the thread where where the project is added to the key. I added a comment there. And if you go at the bottom of this discussion, you have to click load more because it's a long discussion. Oh yeah, it's right there. Scroll up a little bit. Yeah, here. So basically what Michael was suggesting is that maybe, and I don't think he's in the call, is he? Yeah, he has a different meeting as well. But basically, I spoke with him a few minutes ago, and he was suggesting that maybe we should consider to remove the project key from the cache key. And that was my question there. I guess that targets to Blake, as he worked in the original PR that introduced that key. You don't have to answer now, Blake, only if you have from the top of your head, but maybe what I'd like to understand, what would be the behavior if we remove that from the cache keys?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not against it per se. I mean, I do agree we need to address it, and I do agree that this is. I mean, I guess we can argue if it's a regression or not. I mean, but what we can say here is that this obviously is not something we want this person to suffer from. So I think we just need to be careful that we don't have like, I mean, Michael's arguing that this is the likelihood of introducing like any kind of security implications is very low. It probably is. I would want to discuss this with Alex, Alex M, because I worked on this and he was suggesting that we should try to make sure that other projects don't inadvertently in theory. So the gist of it is that in theory, like if one is to use the same credentials or like have different credentials. So the background is that different projects can access the same repo since 2.12. And in theory, there's admittedly a very small minuscule chance that like if you could access the repo and then different credentials could yield different access to a given repo with different access. I don't know if it's a real thing we should. I mean, I'm inclined to agree with Mike. It's not maybe something that is in practice something that is a real problem in practice, but I would at least would want to at least ask. I would say like let's ask Alex about that
Sure.
specific part. But I'm not against it per se. I mean, I do agree that I see the issue. Let's put it that way.
Just a quick question. Why is it not working? Because it should just have more cache, like more items in the cache. The cache should not still continue working even with the project in the key.
So the problem is that when the repo server is initiated, then the cache gets also initiated. And the way it works, like in most cases, because this guy has done a very special, I mean, I would say it's a clever hack, but the gist of it is that he instantiates the Git repo using a init container into the repo server. So what normally happens is that if a user accesses a repo for the first time, it will then it will git clone or Helm or whatever. It doesn't really matter, but it would store the contents of the repo in a randomized directory, and then that repo, then there's a key that gets generated which points to the location in disk. But in this case, that doesn't happen since we don't know of which project wishes to use this on the initiation of the repo server. And since this guy's done this approach with a init container.
So basically the user wants to break any security boundaries by populating the cache and not reaching to the actual repos.
Yeah, you could say that. Well, I mean, in this sense, as long as like this would be less of an issue if we share, because with 2.12 the approach was to split the cache per app project. But if we were to go back to how it was pre the 2.12, then we would share the same cache key across projects, and then he could just populate the cache key using the URL and revision, and then it's not so much of a security boundary if we were to go to that.
I guess the point here is understanding what is the security that we're trying to address, right? Because once the action is cloning the repo, yes or no, there's no other additional security on top of that.
No,
right?
I mean,
once you have access to the file system with the clone repo,
sure,
that's you have access to all files in that repo.
Sure.
So the only thing that the project protects is you not having access to the file system at all, right? And that is guaranteed even if you don't have the project as part of the key of the cache key.
I'm actually curious, like, what if several projects reference the same repo? And can you actually create a proper cache with that at all? Like, even in the best case scenarios, if we support stuff? Or would there be some conflicts when sometimes you could just, like, I don't know, have like two entries which I want to leave under the same cache key?
Sorry, okay, I'm not following. So if we're sharing the same cache key and the same location on disk and the same revision?
Something like that, yeah, but just belongs to different projects. I mean, because like I think it's maybe possible. I don't know. I don't have a lot of context, but sounds like, well, the fundamental problem is there can be some overlap that same cache key can point to like two different actual objects. and that's a problem. And I don't think like user can fully solve this problem too, like to be honest. Even like basically they would have this edge case which is not like handled properly, I think. Another note, I don't know, I don't like to be a bad guy, but I think like 20 gigs for deploy repo is too much. They should just prune it.
That's not the point here. Like we
Yeah.
cannot user do things. We
Exactly.
do have to support all the different patterns.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but
Does
Back to
this
the P.
where CMP plugins are used or not?
No, this is no CMP.
This
It's,
is
so back to the PR discussion, I agree that what the user is trying to do here by setting the project with an empty string is not necessarily what the type of solution that I would like to have, but more something around what Michael is suggesting to drop that project from the cache entirely and just share the same clone with different projects. And that's the piece I'd like to understand from this whole discussion and to decide if we should go in that direction or not. What we're getting and what we're actually losing if we do so. So that's the piece I'd like more clarity.
I think it's definitely worth investigating. I mean, it's definitely worth seeing if there are any implications that we haven't thought of. But I mean, if not, then I'm not against dropping the cache key. I mean that because then maybe, as you say, it's no point having the project, because then if without the project, then we don't really care. Then we can just share the same. We would share the same. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, Dan, there would. So I'm just trying to think out loud what happens. So we access. Yeah, I'll need to revisit code to see exactly what's going on, but I think if we just give this a bit of a think, I think we can. I was
Okay.
thinking exactly. And to answer your question, Mike, I was thinking exactly the same thing. Just like generate. I suggested that in the thread, Mike, where we could generate a hash and then just based upon those credentials, just access the cache in that way. Because the gist of it is that we have a repo credential. We use the project of the said repo credential and URL to actually access the cache in the first place. But generate.
Yeah, I think we can brainstorm the solution async, but
Yeah.
we need to check if the credential use is still valid, even if we take something from the cache, because it could be a different credentials.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and part of the reason I ask about the scoping based on credential is that for sparse checkout, which is that it's linked in that related issue 11198. I haven't put together like a full design for that yet, but my plan was that rather than trying to use a single monorepo that you have lots of sparse checkouts on, I was going to just be like, look, if it's a different credential, then it's going to get a different repo cache. And so you might have overlap. And it makes sense. It's not a big deal to do that, because if you have a repository that's let's say 3 terabytes, you have thousands of different like folders that you actually want to check out, and each one basically you would just treat as a separate repository, and there's no reason to merge them when it's a sparse checkout. So
Okay, I would suggest to continue async the discussion, but yeah, thanks everyone for yeah, brainstorming here.
Okay, thank you. Leo, so shall we continue to the next issue?
Yeah, this one is a proposal from Andre, basically to introduce the replace true. I'm discussing with him basically, I guess my last point, if you scroll to the bottom here, is just what you mentioned here, Andre, that you want to introduce a new configuration at the group kind level. And I guess my
Yes.
point here, we cannot introduce configurations just for the replace false. We need to be consistent with the replace configuration. So if we introduce a group kind level configuration in Argo CD config map, we should do the same for both, replace true and false. We
Oh
cannot
yeah,
have.
yeah, that's included. I was considering exactly that. Yeah. So yeah, basically we have like we just use I think I have example somewhere like yeah, we just use configuration that hey, for this group kind we have resource customization for replace, and we just set it like true or false, or like if you don't set it, we just don't like use it, I guess.
And then we need to clearly document exactly the priority order, because it's going to
Yeah.
be very confusing to the user to predict the behavior depending on the configuration they have, right?
Yeah.
Because now with once this is implemented, we're gonna have four different places where the order will matter, right? So it can be overwritten by in four different places.
Yeah, I think I'm actually okay dropping global config because I don't believe we should just disable or like always enable replace like globally. Honestly, application is also seems like we probably don't need it, but maybe I just put it for consistency with like other sync options. But I think a resource group, like resource annotation, and resource group kind seem to be the only ones which like at least I find like most useful. Because for group kind, like basically the original problem is like, for example, I wanna make sure that like things which own pods cannot be like replaced without special annotation. And would be achieved by group kind configuration for deployment, stateful set, daemon set, etc. For
Mhm.
application, again, it's not like in the spirit, because like generally you don't want to like have a blanket replace of everything or like disable the replace of everything generally. It's more like you are trying to be more targeted and solve specific problems that hey, for certain resources maybe you just by default don't want it. So maybe I can just like simplify it. Like, what do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, global will be will have an additional confusing aspect because in some cases Argo City has to use replace when, for example, when it is applying a big resource like CRD using
Uh-huh.
client-side apply, then that doesn't fit in the last apply configuration, and
Uh-huh.
Argo
Uh-huh.
CD automatically switches to replace,
Oh, I see.
so we can apply the CRD in the cluster. So this is deep in the code in the GitOps engine. So it would be confusing to make replace disable globally, but still have that logic just for CRDs,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, let me update the proposal.
okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, let me know. Like, basically, I can follow up offline, and like, I think I'll
Yeah,
clean up, have one more review, and then maybe like I'll update my PR for GitOps engine at some point, like
sure.
after we like agree on this. Yeah.
Yeah, ping me on Slack when you have updated the proposal.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Andrew.
Okay, thank you. Alex?
Yeah, just added this one for visibility. I stumbled upon this before the meeting. Some
Do you
of
want to
you
come sit with
already
me?
have reviewed that. This is kind of I think
Hi,
a new
Hugo.
feature PR that should be looked at. So basically, it allows you to have parameterized action through Argo UI. The current use case is to use it for scaling, which is not very GitOps, but the feature of having parameterized action is actually pretty useful. So just take a look. Nothing really specific to say about it, unless you disagree with the feature.
I think that actually this feature was already approved quite a long time ago by Michael. And I spent quite some time on reviewing this PR, and there are more things that after some iterations with the author, I would like to continue reviewing it.
Good. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Alexander. Okay, so let's move on to the discussion. Blake, so you wanted to discuss general things regarding code style, in particular lints and mocks.
Yeah. So one thing I've been noticing lately, I've been noticing that there's been a lot of like new lints coming in, and it's feels like I mean, especially for long running branches, it comes in a couple of times and then it breaks in various ways, and it's I guess more of an open question, like, is there some kind of end to this, or is there going to be some like, is there some point where we just deem like, okay, there's enough, like, one, like, will there be some kind of time where we deem there's enough linting on the code base? Two, do they actually add value? And I guess a bit more on have these lints that have been added, do they actually add value? And like yesterday, spent like half an hour, 45 minutes realizing that a new lint had come in, and then it just broke, and I was like, what the fuck was going on? And basically open discussion on that. Like, do we agree, or is there like a general agreement? Maybe I'm thinking of this the wrong way. Maybe I should just suck it
Yeah.
up.
Matthew Morel has been mostly the one that modified the linter, and one of the big problems is that locally right now linting takes a very long time, and it's almost impossible to like run make lints local. I think that's the main issue. If the number of linter, we don't really care. If linting is fast, then everything is fine. So he's aware of that, but yeah, there's an issue at on the speed of the linters in general.
Do we know like which linters are the slowest?
No, I don't. Maybe he has investigated it. I don't know if there's an actual issue on it. So first step maybe is to just open an issue on the linting speed.
Okay, yeah, please look me in. Like I have optimizations background, so I'd like to like look into this and maybe be able to help. But overall, I think my sentiment is, yeah, we should probably limit the number of linters and just like at some point, yeah, it just has diminishing returns, like maybe like 0.00001%, like faster stuff or something. I don't know. I think maybe it's sometimes good to do like one off like PR with apply certain linter, but maybe don't leave it as like a lingering thing.
But Blake, I guess from your concerns, it seems to me that you're complaining about the fact that we are introducing new links in our CI. Is that right?
Yes, or not so much complain, more like it's coming like, little by little, like, one lint here, one lint there. It's like
Right.
either just like throwing all the lints that we have, get it over with, and suffer the pain once, and or like preferably just all at once, and because then it's for some long run branch to have, then I'm editing, then it comes new, and then it's just a bit of a cat and mouse, and even if that happens, like, do we actually feel these lints add value? I mean, so some of these lints I can't think of any specific one out the top of my head, but some of them kind of like it's.
Yeah, I've seen links that doesn't bring a lot of value as well. So I'm mainly agreeing with you that if the link doesn't add value, we should just remove it and not block everyone with the same issue that doesn't bring, again, a much value to the project. Yeah.
And if Matthew wants to introduce lints, just put them in some big. Let's just get them all into this one PR, and just get it over with, and then we can move on.
Or maybe we should have a process I mean, it should be in the PR review, right? So whenever I suspect that when he introduces new lints, there's a PR behind it, right?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I've seen them after fact where Michael has been improving them, and it's yeah. So I mean, there's obviously been improvement. I'm just wondering if this is a general sentiment. Maybe I'm just thinking if it's just me that's being a bit too cranky, or if it's or if it's
No, it's
just
not
my.
just you. I'm with you.
So,
Maybe we should be more critical and in while validating those PRs that introduce links.
that's it. And then the other one, which I guess I bumped into yesterday, is yeah, another cranky thing. I'm not a big fan of mocking frameworks in general, or not at all, especially the way we use them. And I wonder if that's also something which is just a me thing, where because I have some PRs where I've just ripped out interfaces in favor of just using function pointers and just do it that way. But maybe I'm thinking about this the wrong way, and I would. From my perspective, it's just like for a lot of the tests that we do, it's like instead of having, we have an interface, we generate code, and we have a custom DSL, which is stringly typed. We could just use a function and call it a day, and that becomes much easier to reason about for me. But it's
The custom DSL is just for E2E, not for unit test, and mocks are only used for unit tests, not for E2E. Am
well,
I missing
well,
something?
well. I'm referring to the DSL of the mockery in that sense,
Ah,
because
okay, I see.
so basically, instead of just having something like I've had this pattern where it's like, okay, for certain things, I would just send in uh, a function, just have return some values from that. But instead of having this on string of the definite name, and then just have various mock and then have to call the right incantations, I really detest that. And that's but
I think mocking is a pretty standard best practice for writing unit tests compared to
but
using functions. And yeah, if the mockery framework is not ideal, maybe we can look at using another framework for mocks that might exist, but we should not compromise the code implementation by removing interface in favor of functions. I think that's pretty standard in Go as well to use interface.
Yeah, I agree with Alex. I think, and also I would say mockery as once you get used with with its kind of weird DSL, it's not a big deal. You're just guiding how you want the mock to behave, and you don't have to go wild on that. I think it's very useful and helps a lot with isolating dependencies from unit tests, so you can actually run real unit tests,
I
not
mean,
calling.
I understand the intent of interfaces and extracting out dependencies. That part I'm totally with you, and that's not controversial to me at all. It's just more like yeah, it was just more the with Alexander, then it's been like, oh, you should just use the mocking library, and instead of refactoring to do running functions. That's basically it. But I'm fully aligned with extracting out dependencies and not needing to depend on the idiosyncrasies of a given implementation. That much I'm fully aware of. But I will try to. But I take it then as that the functional approach is a bit controversial. So I would want to explore a mocking framework which is not so stringly typed at the very least.
Well,
So
what I
that's
think we could improve is having a dedicated make target that generates all the mocks for the entire project. So I feel like a few are missing there.
we have the make
Um,
mock gen nowadays, which does just that. It looks through all the interfaces and generates mock implementations for them. That already exists. It's just more the assertions which are annoying for me, because that's the stringly typed part, and
okay.
that's the nature of the mocking frames I've seen in Go, at least. I mean, but uh, but sure.
Yeah,
I
there are
mean,
some inconsistencies between mockery usage in Argo CD and GitOps engine. So, and also the mockery exact version used to generate the mocks is also critical. So maybe we can improve that. But I personally don't have anything against mockery. I like the framework, and I think it works really well.
Ah. Oh, back down.
Okay. Andre, I believe we have just discussed the sync
Yeah.
option place and
Yes,
force.
that's right. So yeah, let's go to the second one.
Okay,
It's a weird bug. It's like yeah, basically a martial error invalid character dot after top level value. People just randomly get it. Like for this example is for ingress. I encountered in our environments for like all kinds of resources sometimes. So sometimes Argo CD just goes crazy and say, hey, like I'm in unknown state, cannot do anything, and like I have no idea how to fix it. Is it something in cache breaks or not? Because I checked manifests and they're like well formatted, so I don't even know where this dot is coming from. There are like no like rogue dots or something. At best, there are some annotations which have like dots in the key values, like some like Datadog stuff or whatnot, but it's just normal. Normally, it just like works and should be recognized as a string. So,
Andre, does it happen only for Helm deployments or also for plain manifests from your observations?
I think from plain manifest as well. Yeah, I don't think it's just Helm.
So this is
Uh,
just ingress. The
no,
ticket
no, no, no,
says.
no. It like deployments had this issue sometimes.
And what is
Like
the
yeah,
issue exactly?
so like Argo CD just becomes like unresponsive for that application and says, "Hey, I cannot with server-side diff." So it basically says I cannot like compare live and target state.
Mhm.
And there
But
is this like weird and martial error for like some resource, something. Yeah, I've seen it a lot for Ingress to begin with, like a few months ago. But then I thought, okay, maybe it has to do something with like customize, just put in items on the next line, which the part of a string. So I thought maybe there's some weirdness in how like we parse YAML, or like maybe you just should like avoid spaces in like values and like make sure everything's on one line.
So the
But
user is providing some YAML here. Is this reproducible? If I use this YAML, I can reproduce the problem.
I don't know. I see it more as like a sporadic issue. It just happens with like normal manifests. Just like 1% of the time it can go like nuts. I'm not sure if you have like a strong repro.
They are not providing the application
uh,
YAML.
they no,
I
they
just
didn't.
wanted to see how they're configuring the application exactly. But they are saying, can you scroll up on the, yeah, here. Disabling server-side if annotation fixes the issue. Okay.
Andre, do the errors that you observe, do they also look like this, or there
Yes,
are errors?
exactly.
So
Just exact, pretty much same error. Just like the resource can be like ingress, can be deployment, which is like what typically happens. And I think maybe something else as well. Yeah.
and it happens, and all of your examples also happen with server-side diff.
Yes. Yeah, we have server-side diff enabled globally. But it's again, it's like very weird because it's like only occasional, only for some applications and only sometimes. And most of the time it just works normally. But sometimes people are like reaching out for help saying, hey, my application got stuck with this issue, can you help? I checked the live manifest, I checked target manifest, don't find anything suspicious, and like just shrug and have no idea what to do.
Okay. And you're willing to troubleshoot this, Andre, or
Probably I should. I don't know, unless there are other
I can work with
volunteers.
you on that if you want.
Oh, sounds good. Yeah, I just like first of all, I wanted to bring up to see like if anybody like already got some context, but if not, yeah, let's troubleshoot. I'll allocate some cycles for this.
Okay.
Like
I think that it's also interesting. I wanted to try to reproduce this issue, but I didn't get to it. I think that it is interesting whether the case of this user would just stay reproduce in a stable way. This would be interesting.
mhm.
So you try to
I see.
reproduce this locally and you weren't able to, Reggie?
No, I didn't try. I wanted to, but I
Okay.
eventually didn't get to it. I asked them a couple of clarifying questions,
Mhm.
but no, I didn't had the chance to reproduce it yet. No, I'm just saying that it's actually interesting because if this one would make a stable reproduction, obviously the research is going to be much easier.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, we have 7 more minutes, so probably we're going to be able to discuss this one. Labeling. Oh,
Yeah,
actually,
that's like I brought it up some time back, but it was like at the very end of the discussion, so we didn't like fully like make any like conclusions or something. So I just wanted to like bring this up and like see if we basically do anything about like us having a lot of like issues which are open and like essentially like we cannot address all of them. So basically it's about like do we like do some auto closing? Do we like maybe ask when do we ask people to try to reproduce versus when do we try to reproduce ourselves? Because sometimes it's like I don't know, it's been like from a year or 2 years ago, and maybe like the issue was already fixed. So, but there is like a tricky balance to hold because sometimes if people like file a lot of issues and then they got ignored for some time, and they probably would not be too happy about like, okay, can you still reproduce it? They're like, oh, but I provided all the reproduction steps and stuff like that. So yeah, honestly, I haven't found like a good solution for this. I just like label by version and maybe like, but even then, I don't really use it as much to prioritize. I usually just go over like most recent issues, most like starred or most liked issues, and like least recent issues, just to make sure that we like don't fully like ignore old issues. So I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on like how do you approach like tackling issues. And one thing I'm pretty sure that we probably don't want a bot because that's just frustrating to deal with, I guess, for people. And but in terms of approach to how to like triage and like address issues, then that's what I kind of want to discuss.
I think that there are a couple of different issues there. One of the issues is whether is basically what we do with issues we define as stale. And yeah, this discussion was actually took place a couple of times, both the calls and in another issue that I have also opened. And it seems that automatic closure of issues was not accepted by at least some of the maintainers. And I don't think that currently we have any clear decision on what we do with stale issues.
Yeah.
Correct if I'm wrong
And yeah.
about this.
But basically another question is like, should we or shall we just like leave them as is? And maybe if they get a lot of likes, we follow up.
Well, that's the point is that a bunch of them are like they're stale. They've been sitting there for 3 years without any activity. It's like,
So are yeah, fix them. I'm of the opinion of dropping the hammer like pretty aggressively, but I know some folks aren't keen on that. Is there a way, I mean, without
I'm with you.
probably yeah, probably not. I mean, there's probably a lot of these that are no longer like applicable, right? There's like
exactly. And that's like when I've gone through them manually, like I closed like last year, I probably closed like 1,000 issues, reviewing them manually. And so many of them were like that, Christian, that it was like
yeah.
that at that point I was like, okay, we should just like if it's too stale for long enough, we should just close it. And if it's an issue, someone will reopen it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I mean, obviously should be like levels. Like, I think someone suggested like marking it as stale, then marking it as I forget what the levels are. Like marking it as frozen, and then after a while, it just automatically closes, which then notifies the user, right? I mean, I get notified too, like when my issue goes stale, right? There's no activity. Um, and what that time is, I don't, whatever we can talk about that, but I think that's like a good good way, because like Dan, same here. I looked through like some of these manually, and it's like a lot of these like don't apply. I just close them.
Yeah, I usually just close them and ask to, like, if you want it reopened, just ask to reopen it. And like people that are still active or are still blocked for that issue for whatever reason, they will take the time to ask to reopen it. But
See.
yeah, I think it's okay to like aggressively close issues when they're not
Mm.
reproducible, not a confirmed bug, or they might be like a user configuration issue where we have nothing to do in Argo except maybe providing
Mm-hmm.
support to the user on how to
Yeah.
configure.
Yeah. Maybe let's do some mild way, then maybe, you know, like issues older than like 1 year, we like mark as stale, then maybe another like half a year or so we close, so it just doesn't feel too aggressive. But I just had this example with like George Soros. Basically, he was the guy who was like complaining of me, like asking people, hey, is it still reproducible and stuff like that, and like doing some tagging. And he is a guy who opened like hundreds of issues. And I would imagine, yeah, he would probably be frustrated if we just like close a lot of them and just like say, yeah, it's stale. And sometimes he just has like really interesting stuff, which is like can still be applicable. So maybe we should like think of some like treatment of like people who file a lot of stuff. We shouldn't just like close the issues or something. Should maybe like follow up more closely, or yeah.
I suggest us to bring this topic to the maintainers meeting, and we make a decision there.
I just
A lot of people are in favor of having this uh, of closing
Yeah,
the
that makes
issues.
sense.
So let's
Leo,
continue there.
Leo, I just had one question. Like, are we trying to solve even the PRs? Like, there are PRs which are labeled as rotten. So I think such PRs at least could be closed. Like, if there's no reply from the contributor for next 6 months after it's marked as rotten, we could at least close the PRs. Issues could still live because someone else could pick it up and work. Like,
Yeah, I think we need to discuss the PRs as well in the maintainers meeting.
Yeah.
okay.
PRs is probably less of an issue. At some point, I just went through a ton of them, and like at least like in recent year, and like got some like things going on for that. There's just not as many PRs. And then like one more thing though, let's not call them like rotten. I guess let's call them maybe just stale or something, because rotten may have like negative connotations, and people are like, no, it's not rotten. It's like it's my PR. It's like still like viable or something. I don't know. Like that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, we're gonna have a meeting next week. I'm gonna add a topic. I'm gonna bring this topic there. Okay.
And I believe there's been like a notions of like some regression that if we can spare a couple more minutes, like to discuss in, I think Keith mentioned it in Zoom comments. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I will put this on the regression one. I will put it on the discussion for next time. And Dan, is this okay with you to host the next meeting? You're on the list?
Yep. Planning on it.
All right. Great. So thanks, everyone. And see you next week.
Okay, thanks.
Oh,
Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Right.